Well, g'day everybody. Welcome to another edition of Australian Paddock. Thanks to everybody who have subscribed over the last few months. It's been fantastic support to see that, and thanks for the comments. I try and answer them as often as I possibly can. Well, today we are back in the vineyard for another update on what's happening because it's spring. Hooray! Everything started to spring to life. And I just wanted to show you though that while everything is springing to life, we have had a bit of an issue with our greatest enemy and our greatest fear, the dreaded frost. So about 2 weeks ago we had bud burst and everything was looking absolutely fantastic. Lots of beautiful green growth. About a week later we had one day where it got down to about 0 or freezing. And all that lovely new growth on a lot of the plants got browned off. Now, like a lot of the issues that we found in the vineyard, it was very different depending on which plant it was on. And it doesn't seem to matter whether they're big or small or thick or thin or whether they're higher up or lower down. It just seems to just hit different plants in different ways. So what I want to do in this video today is show you what damage we've had from the frost, but also how they've started to recover. Specifically how we've had the primary buds destroyed on many plants, but now that it's been another week, I want to show you how the secondary buds are starting to grow and how we can hopefully use that for the main part of the growth period to come. And of course we keep our fingers crossed that we don't have any more frost between now, and Christmas. Otherwise, I'm not sure what we're going to do. We'll come back and do another video if that happens. So let's have a look at our plants and I'll show you what I mean. So here are two buds. I don't know if you can see, if I just come back a little bit, I'm just trying to get using my hand to focus. There's our wire. Now this plant had been trimmed to, you can see, about maybe 10 to 15 centimetres below the wire, and you can see what damage the frost has done to these top two buds in particular. They've really browned right off. It's a real shame. Now the buds below are coming through just fine, and you can really see how the frost affects the top. Now what I would have liked to have done in retrospect is what they call prune for frost. If I had pruned this vine up here, then we may only have lost buds up here. Now, even though I want it to be cut here, but the idea would be is that when you prune up here, if you have a frost, the buds here would die, but the buds lower down where you want them to be alive, they would still be alive. So that's what's happened here. These buds are all fine all the way down, bursting nicely. But instead, I've got two buds here, primary growth, that's died back. And of course down here, primary growth is looking exceptionally good. Now, what's also happening though, if you're looking here really closely, you can see that there's a secondary bud just there starting to come through. The primary bud above, very hard to see. This primary bud, if I point at it with my finger, primary bud's died. Secondary bud underneath is starting to come through. The top one's actually dead. Now, what I'm hoping, and it should be fine, is that the secondary bud will grow and be able to be espaliered along the wire here. That's the plan. So even though we've had some damage done, and you can see the secondary bud underneath this one, just here where my thumb is, I think that might be okay. It's a little bit harder to tell. Worst case though, the second and third buds from the top here could be espaliered out, as long as we don't get any more frost. But you can see how, while we have had a frost, and it has caused significant damage, we do have the opportunity, hopefully, this season, to grow these two buds out. And if not, we still have a backup bud down here. The idea is that the top four buds, 1, 2, 3, 4, are where your cordon is going to come from. Now, if you are to lose any of these top ones, not just the frost, but maybe to a bird or just breaking off, you've always got a backup. And the ones below here will actually take those off at some point. A lot of these plants are also very hard to see inside. You see there's also some growth just in there, see where my finger is? There's also growth coming from down below. So there's a lot of life in these plants. So that's that vine. And what I might do is just show you some other vines at different stages and different damages. So let's come in on this vine here. See, it's also one of these vines that's been nice and strong growth. And you can already see that this is actually lower down the hill than the other one. And look at that, that's just primary bud growth. The top two buds are absolutely perfect. And all that says to me is that the frost is just very fickle about what it wants to destroy. And the lower buds here are still bursting. So this is fine. Completely unaffected by the frost. Please don't ask me why. It's just the nature of the frost. And again, if we look down inside the guard, all this growth down here, which really needs to come out. I need to break these off. But you see that vine is so alive in comparison to the other ones. Really fantastic. Now here's a vine that I cut back to a lower point this year because the growth wasn't very strong. Now, lots of green. Here is the frost damage on this little spur coming up here. But you can see that these buds from the original graft are growing super strong. Now there are some secondary buds coming up here and secondary growth in here. So you see the frost has damaged it, but so far so good. Again, the thing's just so alive, it's just growing so quickly, it's hard to believe. And this will hopefully grow up the string. If I zoom back and up to the wire, you see the wire there, and there's the plant. And that's what we should be able to do this year. Just another example where the frost has hit it quite hard, but it is recovering. Now here's a vine in the same row as the other ones I was just showing you, where the top buds are really struggling from the frost. This might be secondary growth just where my thumb is there. The top buds have been hit much harder. And the second bud down, well, it probably is green and might still be okay. As we come down though, look, all these buds have burst. So what does that say? The answer is I just don't know at this stage. We only keep an eye on these, and I'm hoping that we'll get bud burst from here and here. If not, we can still espalier from these two here. It's not ideal, but it's not the end of the world. But we'll wait and see. Just been hit harder, I think. Now here's one that I really think is quite sick. Come right in on this bud here. Now, is that secondary growth there or not? And the same with the bud underneath. It's really very hard to tell. And this one here, I reckon that bud there is completely dead. Now the buds down lower, as you can see, aren't too bad. It's certainly, the plant's alive. There's plenty of vigour in these plants. We'll have to wait and see with this one. This one I may end up cutting off down here somewhere and regrowing from a lower point. But another example where there'll need to be a decision on this individual plant in a couple of weeks about what I do. There's plenty of time, because what we've also done is we've replaced, if I step back, here's another plant that's just fine, although again you see the top two buds struggling and the lower ones are fine. And over here next to it, this is a freshly planted brand new replacement vine for the dead ones from last year. So no growth because these have only been in for a few days. You can see the ground's all still a big mud pie from when it was planted. So we'll see, those will probably bud burst in about 2 weeks. That would be the expectation. Got some slightly warmer weather and a lot of rain at the moment, which is very unusual for around here. So look, we'll see how we go. So there you go, that's frost damage in the vineyard 2020. Maybe it's the COVID frost, who knows. What I'm going to do is really just let them grow. We've got new vines in, they haven't even bud burst yet. We don't want to let too much unnecessary growth occur on any of the vines. We want to put as much growth as we can into the main leaders to form our cordon. But at the same time, I think it's a little bit premature to be pruning or knocking things off while we're still in a frost time of year. We've got about 2 or 3 weeks, which we want to get through, to not have that super low temperature. Cold is fine, but freezing is not good. So I hope you enjoyed this little video. I'll come back and try and show you the same thing again in a couple of weeks to show what I'm talking about. And then, with a bit of luck, we can prune or adjust each of the vines and make them grow a little bit better. So, and thanks very much again for those people who have been subscribing and making comments. And please subscribe, leave a comment. I really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to making the next video, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.